created a monster. I created a monster. I created a monster. I created a monster. This looks like a job for me. I created a monster.
What's up, Jets fans? This is Ramon from Jets Guru, aka at Guru Jets on Twitter. Hey, you are now watching Jets Guru Live. Go Jets, ATL, Jets.
Let's make sure we play like the New York Jets.
All gas, no brake.
Hello? You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. You play to win the game.
What's going on, Jets Nation? CJ the Painkiller D. Simone here, and you are watching Jets Guru. Now, give it up for your host, Mr. Daniel Smith!
What is going on, New York Jet and Jet Guru fans? Thank you, JR, for the introductions and all the fancy stuff. Appreciate it. We got Jets Guru Kevin with you over from the Live Rounds family. What is going on? This is yet again, we are on another adventure at quarterback here, and I'm excited that Adam Gase is gone. I cannot stress how good I feel right now. You're talking about the New York Knicks, 9 games away from making the playoffs the first time in so long, and they're grinding, they're getting it together. You got the first place Mets who can't hit, but they can pitch, baby, okay? And now you got the Jets who get rid of the trash that we should have never hired in the first place. And like we've been talking about, the number one thing that was the most important out of anything this offseason was the owner to finally let football people run the New York Jets. And listen, everything's 50-50, right? I don't have all the answers. If I did, I would go play the lottery right now, 100%. But what I do know is the people that are in the building right now, from the GM all the way down to the last special teams guy, is here because each and every person that's around them wanted that person here. And you cannot say that every single year for the New York Jets like you used to be able to say it. You know, when Rex Ryan was here, people wanted to be in the building. There were people there that wanted him and wanted that life and wanted that. The Jets were bumping, right? But ever since then, it's just been off. GMs who didn't hire coaches didn't hire GM, blah, blah, blah. Let's just get football guys in here and run it properly. And I think with GM Joe Douglas, who's a football guy, is in here. and he's been doing a wonderful job, I believe, since he's been here at managing the money side of it and not overspending. And that comes with being a football guy and knowing what the value is per position, not just for the name and just not for selling tickets and bringing people in the door as well. He brings in Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh brings in LaFleur. You have Jeff Ulbrich here. You have Miles Austin. You've got a bunch of nice guys that are here that have had success before that were wanted. There wasn't a GM that you hear leak reports. Did you hear any leak reports? Any leak reports that the GM didn't want the coach or that the coach didn't want this certain player in free agency that the Jets signed? All you heard coming out of the Jets camp are players that they brought in. They said they sat down with them and said, we want you here not because we feel like you're necessarily just going to be a superstar. We want you in here because you fit the system in which we are trying to operate and install. And the one thing I like about Joe Douglas, Kevin, is that last year he tried getting the offensive line figured out all in one offseason. Boom, let's get 5 new guys in here. That necessarily didn't work out. And I am in the camp, honestly, me personally, where you can't get everybody in one offseason free agency and one offseason draft class because you're going to hit too much. You're not going to hit. You're going to fail too much because it's 50-50 as it is. And then you're talking about one offseason and one draft class. You are a 2-win team. You are not going to rebuild the offensive line into what the Colts rebuilt it in just one offseason in a new system. You got a new offensive line coach in here that wants to run a wide zone. Well, you're going to start bringing in offensive linemen that fit that while still being able to retain the bodies that are already here. This is a rebuild, okay? There is 1 year of Joe Douglas's time where he did not make the decision. So last year was the only year that he made decisions for this team, and now you have a new coach and a new offensive coordinator and a new defensive coordinator. So this is going to be a 2-year process in figuring in this offensive line. I like what the Jets have done so far in free agency, Kevin. How are you feel going into this draft, going into most likely picking your franchise quarterback with what they've done in this offseason from staff to personnel?
No, I think you made a great point that they're still building out the roster. They're still rebuilding. And when you have 3 picks in the first 35, those are obviously foundation players that you expect to be part of the long-term solution. So what you said about free agency and how you set up the cap is you want to give yourself as much flexibility as possible because you want to draft enough good talent to be able to re-sign them and not be locked into bad deals. So when Quinnen Williams' deal comes up in a year, when Becton's deal comes up, a couple years after that, you can extend them and have no challenges. Same thing with Marcus May. If he continues to be a leader, you can get that deal done. And again, you're not overspending and front-loading a bunch of big contracts. You just get those deals done and keep locking up. Guys, you don't have much money in free agency if you draft well because you're spending all your time re-signing your own players. That's why when people say Baltimore doesn't spend a lot in free agency, well, they got 2 tackles getting paid crazy money. They have like 3 Pro Bowlers on their offensive line, and they have a ton of defensive players that they just have to keep re-signing. And that's the problem you want to have. You just want to have too much talent to re-sign rather than have so much money because you're not re-signing your own players that you're chasing free agents. And that's how Joe Douglas is setting up this team. Today, we need to come out with, and you can't expect Joe Douglas to hit on every single pick, okay, guys? Nobody bats 1,000 in this, right? Just because he drafted P. Ryan doesn't mean he's going to be LaDainian. Like, we got to set expectations. It's not going to be every pick as a Pro Bowler, so relax a little bit. But hopefully 2 out of 3, if we're lucky, 3 out of 3 become staples of the Jets' future and the foundation to add to Becton, to add to Williams. And what you said around what I saw in free agency, I think he's already set up a lot of that groundwork. Hopefully Davis, who was a top 10 pick himself, ends up being a long-term solution at wide receiver. And, he's got a good deal that you can either get out of it after a couple years, or it's an easy deal to stay into because you didn't pay him crazy money. And same thing with Lawson. Lawson complements Quinnen. Quinnen needed a Batman and Robin, or Batman and Superman, however the heck you want to put it. Somebody that doesn't do what we failed and did with Leonard Williams. Like Leonard Williams never had his other guy who was as good as a Quinnen until the very end. And I'm not saying Leonard would have been better, but it would have been easier. And maybe he would have been better if life was easier. So Quinnen may be way better, maybe a top 10 defensive lineman, but he can reach his full potential if he's got a guy who takes the pressure off the other side. And that's what I expect him to do. So we know the Jets got a lot of holes. So we go in the draft knowing we need offensive line help, running back help, and we need quarterback help, obviously, the biggest hole, linebacker help. But I think Joe Douglas has a whole roster to fortify. So it's going to be plugging holes, but even areas you think might be all set, D-line, pass rusher, whatever it is, he's going to keep stabilizing the roster. I look forward to seeing all of it today.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think, listen, there's a lot of holes, but the Jets have a lot of picks. And here's the thing. Everyone keeps saying more picks, more picks, more picks. Listen, I'm not giving up certain players and I'm not giving up certain positions just to get more picks. I think the Jets are in an excellent position right now. I think when you look at the picks for this year and next year, including the fact that the Jets are going to carry over somewhere in the high 40s to, mid 50s in cap space next year. So I think it's really important when you look at it that this is a complete rebuild. It's really important that people understand that. Like, I think we lose sight of that. And the Jets haven't rebuilt in a long time. And honestly, Kevin, you brought up earlier in the season on Jets Guru audio podcast, that's available everywhere you listen to audio podcasts, how we talked about earlier in the season with the Jets and how when you get a good coaching staff in, there's players left over, that could really do some damage when you put them in a new scheme. And when you look at a guy like Marcus May, you look at a guy like Quinnen Williams, you look at a guy like CJ Mosley, and then you've got a bunch of rotational pieces, that you have on the defensive line that have shown some, some life. And I think that in a type of system that Saleh wants to run, and honestly, the Jets need to get better at a whole bunch of positions. I mean, obviously, the big hole is offensive line, just because we've seen how bad it's been the last few years. Moving into cornerback, which is absolutely filled with green guys, just young guys across the board. Obviously, there's no quarterback. You could add another receiver to the mix, but I think if that's going to be done, I think that would be in the later rounds, most likely, because I think with Keelan Cole there, I think Keelan Cole is another underrated sign, a guy in the slot where Crowder's most likely going to take most of the reps there. But if you need a fourth guy and you need a guy in the slot, Crowder's been injured a few games here and there, you could slide Keelan in there and you're not going to lose a lot of production at that spot. I think that was a little crafty sign by Joe Douglas to protect yourself, and especially if you plan on getting another receiver in the draft. And then you have guys like, Berrios and stuff like that you could slide around. So I think the Jets, wide receivers are pretty good. And I think Corey Davis, who was brought over, I think a lot of people kind of just bypassed that signing, and I don't understand why. I mean, Corey Davis had an excellent season, and I mean, he had to share reps with another really good wide receiver and also had to share reps with a running back where the offense was really mostly centered around what the running back could do, which then set up the quarterback because no one was going to respect the quarterback straight up on his own. And so I think that if you get a dynamic quarterback that you think Wilson is, listen, you take Zach Wilson at 2, you think he's a dynamic quarterback who's going to change the face of your franchise. And how he's graded, and when you look at his tape, you could do some things with this guy. And I think Corey Davis is going to show his worth more times than not this season. He's a quality player that I think now is starting to turn the corner into the I wouldn't say the elite of the elite, but in that top elite category, he's pushing it right there. I mean, elite numbers right there. So if he's able to replicate that with the New York Jets, I mean, even next year, you're going to have to start putting him in that class. But the Jets have protection because I believe in Denzel Mims and I believe in his potential. I mean, if he could show like that in the first half of games that he did with a staff around him and the play calling, I mean, listen, when Mims was featured, and we talked about this, Kevin, he played well. It's just Mims, they forgot about him in the second half, or the defense took him away, and either Adam Gase or Sam Darnold or the offensive line or everybody together most likely couldn't overcome that. And obviously it's a rookie, and so they're going to do things and they're going to shade him in coverage and to try to take him out of the game. But when the ball was thrown his way, you saw a guy who was very comfortable in the passing lanes, catching the football all over. And one thing I'll say about Denzel Mims that I think is really important is that the tough catches, when they were a little too high, when it didn't look like it was possibly going to be a catch, when it looked like he was absolutely blanket covered, he would always elevate and get to the ball to put himself in a chance to either catch it or make the catch. And that is something that we saw in college coming out of Baylor that we really liked out of him. And he was able to translate that in his rookie year to a quarterback who was one of the worst deep ball throwers in the NFL. The bottom 3 or 4 throwers in the NFL, Sam Darnold was. I think a step up in talent. I think a step up in offensive line, which I think is not going to be as worse as it was. A step up in play calling, a step up in scheme, a step up in play protection is all going to factor, including still having Jamison Crowder in the slot and having guys like Keelan Cole and a new drafted wide receiver. And let's not forget the Jets tight end situation. We really liked what Herndon does. You know, a lot of people said, well, Sam Darnold in this offense would have looked a lot better too. Well, don't you think Herndon's going to look a lot better in this offense? And no one's really been talking about him getting cut or getting let go. I mean, I think when you look at Herndon on tape, I think San Francisco offense would have loved to have him if Kittle wasn't there. I think you look at a guy like Herndon, I think there's some things there that they're going to really like playing with this guy. I think another tight end's needed for sure. I think you're going to see a lot of pre-snap movement with this team. I think Herndon is comfortable with that. I like this offense on paper. It's not great, but you're competing against New England Patriots who spend a lot of money to probably go 8-9 or 9-8 or whatever it's going to be. But still, it's an improvement, and there's a lot of veterans on that team, a lot of winners, a winning scheme, and so it could happen. You win a couple games here and there, and you never know. An injury happens. So I'm not going to necessarily count them out, but they're going to be better than the Jets. I mean, that's what I'm presuming. You then have the Dolphins who are going to be really pushing up on the heels. I think you're going to look at the Dolphins how you looked at the Bills, not last year, but the year before, and that's what you're going to see them do this year. And then you have the Buffalo Bills who, honestly, this year and next year, they're going to have to make a run for the Super Bowl or they're going to start losing players, and then you're going to really see how good Mr. Josh Allen is over there, and he's going to have to go through his little down slope. Maybe not. Maybe they draft well. Maybe they're able to tie it together. That's what the good organizations do and allow the quarterback to still be able to play. But this is a stacked division. This is a stacked conference, Kevin. And so the calls for some of these fans that Zach Wilson, you're going to hear it. It's going to be Zach Wilson throws an interception and, if Darnold was here, you got to look at it differently. He's not Sam Darnold. He's not year 4 Sam Darnold. He's going to be year 1 Zach Wilson. And I like what LaFleur, I like that play style. I think it's going to translate well over to Zach Wilson and what he can do. And again, when you look at the quarterback, it all flows in together. Coach, owner gets the GM. GM gets the coach. Coach gets the staff. Staff gets the free agency players. Then they start drafting guys that fit their system. Zach Wilson is a quarterback who would fit, that plugs right into this system, in my opinion. And I just absolutely think that, listen, I know there's Justin Field fans out there. If you get Justin Fields, I'm happy with that too. I'm happy that Adam Gase and Sam Darnold are not my combo anymore right now. That's how I feel. And so we got to be a little bit more excited as Jet fans at what the potential of this all could mean. This means new. And I don't want to hear Jet fans with their salty attitude talking about, it's the Jets, it's not going to work. Well, then why are you watching then? Because at one point in time, the Patriots were not the Patriots that you see now. They were not the standard organization for how an NFL franchise should run things and coach things. It wasn't them. Teams go through cycles. Some teams have generational success where they kind of go from one quarterback to the next. You see that with Green Bay. You've seen that with San Francisco at times. You've seen that at Dallas at times. You've seen that with the Steelers at times. But there's in between, the in-betweeners, right? That's who I want to be. I want to be the Ravens. I want to be the Steelers. I don't want to get a quarterback who's great and then disappear and then get another one. I want a team that's constantly on your butt, always worried about playing the Ravens, always worried about playing the Steelers because they're a potential playoff team. Even when it seems like everyone's getting hurt, they're still pushing because they draft well. Like Kevin said earlier in the show, you want enough talent that where you're like, okay, well, we could let this guy go because we got somebody behind him. And if you don't win a Super Bowl, you don't pop. Well, all right, next one up. We know you're going to be great, but we think this one's going to be great too. And we got surrounding pieces around him They're going to make him be great. And when those guys are free agents and he's a veteran, we'll let that guy go and the next guy will step up. Is it a risk? Everything is a risk. Of course, you can pick the wrong guy. All of a sudden it falls apart. A coach leaves, goes somewhere else. And now you're scrambling. Now you don't have a quarterback. It could happen, sure. But what Joe is trying to say is that we're not going to overpay for players anymore to bring in medium level talent. We're not going to overpay in certain positions where it just doesn't work long term for the future of your team when you're trying to bring in other players. And we're certainly not going to bring in guys just on the name alone. He wants to bring in guys that are going to fit with what they're doing as an organization. And that is the first time you've seen that in nearly 10 years all the way through. You've got to be juiced as a fan. So, Kevin, I ask you, I think we're all going with Zach Wilson unless you have something else at number 2. After number 2, at 23, who are the Jets picking at number 23? And what I want you to guys, before you say your pick right now, before we get going, I want you guys to drop your picks. And I don't want to see a list of like 500 names. You're not going to be qualified for it. Screenshot your picks, post the picture in this video, and the person that has the closest to matching the Jets' actual picks all the way through the draft will get a chance at winning a Jets jersey of a current player, not like Tim Tebow or something like that, okay? So go ahead and screenshot your picks and drop them in now. And I'm checking the time because we're starting at 7:30, so I'll give you a couple more minutes to get your picks in, and then it locks in at 7:30. So last-minute checks, and we want all of them. If you're going to put a trade in there, it doesn't matter. We just want your picks. Because, for instance, on the PFF, you can't pick kickers on there for some reason. They don't evaluate kickers, I guess, which is my type of thing. That's why I like PFF, because I do not like kickers. Punters, I'm all right with. Kickers, not so much. They determine too much in the game, and they barely play, and it's super annoying. But I do have a kicker in there, and I do think that the Jets are going to wind up getting rid of that 7th pick that they have, and so I don't think they pick there at all. So get your picks in. You got about another minute or two. I don't want a bunch of names. Again, I want you screenshotting your picks and get a chance to win a jersey if you come closest to getting the picks. And if I beat you, though, if I have the most picks, you guys don't win anything, okay? Because we're not playing second place here. So you got to beat me, and you got to beat Kevin too, all right? No freebies here. You got to work for it. You got to be top dog, okay? So drop your picks. Let me see what we got. I'm going to scroll down. We don't have anybody. You guys are pathetic. Come on. All right, I thought you loved me. You watch me every week. Drop the damn pick so I can give you free stuff. All right, so screenshot it. Let's see your picks. I know you guys got mock draft after mock draft after mock draft. So we're going to give some people some time to get it. We don't care. We'll go all the way up to the draft time. Screw it. We all know that Zach Wilson's going to be number 2 anyways. If you want to lose on that first pick. But imagine if Jacksonville comes up and goes, and the Jacksonville Jaguars select Zach Wilson out of BYU. And then the Jets come up and we're screaming, bro. We're screaming. And then all of a sudden it says the Jets have traded the number 2 pick. And you're like, no, we're going to lose it. Imagine, that would be crazy. But no, the Jets should get number 2. So with that being said, start drafting your picks. Maybe we'll give somebody some ideas, help them out. Maybe they're conflicted. So, Kevin, what do you got at 23 after the Jets pick our new franchise quarterback?
Yeah, I got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, the linebacker. I know he's a little bit on the light side, but I think you need, just like you're getting a leader of the offense, I think you need a leader of the defense. I think we're very thin at linebacker. I know we got Mosley coming back, but he hasn't played in 2 years. We have the kid we just signed from Detroit, Davis, who we don't really know what he is. We hope he lives up to his first-round grade, but he didn't in Detroit. And then your third linebacker, like legitimately, who's your third linebacker? Blake Cashman. Like I literally have no idea who's starting on the other side. So I think this is a zone-heavy defense. You need some guy who's really good in coverage. You need a guy who totally butchered. Stuart still autocorrect does on names. Look at that. But anyways, punished him, poor guy. But no, we need our Derek Brooks. We play a lot of zone. We're going to play a lot of cover 2, cover 3, almost a Thomas Davis like linebacker for the Carolina Panthers. Again, very athletic, really good in coverage. We need that guy. I know everybody thinks O-line, and maybe it will be, but I think there'll be O-linemen there at 34. So I think you take one guy for the offense, one guy for the defense. And I know everyone just trusts that Mosley is going to come back and be 100%. But I don't want to be literally an injury away from just Cashman, Davis, and some other guy. Like, I think we got to come out of this draft with 3 linebackers, to be honest. We need a starter. We need a quality backup that can pinch hit because we didn't bring Basham back. So who's that guy? Cashman is supposed to be one of the backups. We need another guy that's a backup. And I think that we're going to have to get an undrafted free agent that can play too. I legitimately think the Jets, between the draft and free agency, we need 3 linebackers. It's just embarrassingly thin there. So I expect the Jets to address that and to address that high. I know a lot of people talk about corner. A ton of people are talking corner. Guys, we played cover 2 and cover 3 zone. Where did Richard Sherman get drafted? Where did Rondé Barber get drafted? Those are like elite cover 2, cover 3 guys. They don't have to be the fastest, most athletic following guy. Richard Sherman is not the fastest guy in the world. He's got a very high IQ, and he knows how to do all the handoff process and the communication that goes with playing a zone. So I know everyone thinks like we're probably going to go corner high. I won't be shocked if we do. I won't be shocked if we don't. Newsome is a good – Newsome from Northwestern is a guy I thought of a little bit because he's a traditional cover 2, cover 3 guy who would transition very well. Probably better than Horns or Tan and some of the other names that you're seeing. Those are guys who can come out of the box right away and be – that's all they do, man-to-man coverage. We're not in Rex Ryan's system anymore, and those are things fans got to keep in mind is there got to be scheme fits too. So just because their scouting report at corner is outstanding, are they going to want to stand in space and hand off wide receivers to safeties? Is that what they want to do is cover corners? We've seen a lot of guys try to go from one to the other and not be successful in the NFL. So scout the players appropriate for our system. So I'm going with a linebacker that fits a zone coverage scheme, can cover a lot of space because the pass rush in this defense has to come from the D-line. That's why you got Lawson, Rankins, Franklin Myers, Quinnen Williams, Vinny Curry. And the linebackers are going to be in zone behind it to slow up the coverage, confuse the quarterback, and allow the defensive line to have time to get to the quarterback. So having an elite cover linebacker is very important. They got to get to the spot and very quickly. The other thing that you pointed out is Josh Allen. It's a perfect recipe to take away a running quarterback. You need a guy who's going to be able to shadow him, be all over the field, be in coverage, and quickly come off when he gets out of the pocket. So I think we need somebody here, and that's why I'm taking one at 23. Sorry to cut you off.
I mean, I'm going to be happy again. Yeah, I just am. And pretty much anybody that's getting drafted at that spot because the Jets just honestly need so much help. I disagree with you and agree with you because I believe that Mr. Newsome is a very good zone corner as well. I believe he could do just pretty much about anything he wants to do. I mean, this guy, he's getting so much love too. I don't even know if he'll make it unless the Jets were able to trade up if they really wanted him that bad. But remember how green the New York Jets secondary really is. I mean, it is super green, and you could pick up a veteran, and there's going to be veteran cuts, and there's a few people still out there. But I think if Newsome is still sitting there, I think it's going to be hard for the Jets to turn away from him. I don't think Bless Dawson's a starting corner in this league. I think Bryce Hall has a chance, but you're not really sure, and they didn't draft him. And so then after that, you just have really a bunch of just kind of guys who've been let go, put together, haven't been given opportunities, which is great, especially in a rebuilding scenario. But I think also to help that defensive line and help those linebackers, in coverage is also in a league where the ball is going vertical so much on the edges that I think that you got to have some kind of coverage in. I think with Bryce Hall, you have a pretty decent start right there. But with Newsome, you talk about a guy who had 21 pass breakups in 15 games. He ran a 4.28 shuttle. He runs a 4.38 overall. I mean, so he could play man. He could play zone. I mean, he allowed only 12 catches for 93 yards in 6 games this year, a 34% completion rating. I mean, you know how much that could help the Jets and this young pass rush that, let's be honest here. There's a lot of new moving pieces when it comes to this New York Jets team, and we don't know exactly how that pass rush is going to work. or who the Jets are really going to be able to get for a linebacker out there. And so I think if you got a guy like Newsome, I mean, it could be a game changer for you. It could really help the back end. And there's other guys, I think, in the draft, too, that could help you at linebacker. I have another one a little bit further down. We both have him, actually. And he's another guy who was one of the best cover linebackers in college football in Jabril Cox. And so I think that, having a guy like that and, bringing a guy like Newsome, kind of filling it out across the board, spreading it out, I think could do some good. So, yeah, I'm happy with your pick, and I'm happy with Newsome as well. And here's another thing. If the Jets go offensive line at 23-2, I'm happy with that. I think a lot of people are scared to pick centers really high because they feel like they could get them lower in value in the draft. But there's just certain guys, if you like them, you're just going to have to get them because the Jets are in a unique spot because they're very top heavy where they get a lot of quick hitters right there. But you have a lot of holes, and there's some players that I think would really fit well with the Jets. So I think a guy like Creed Humphrey probably is still around at 34. This is a guy who didn't allow a sack at all last year. This is a guy that's been a starter. He's considered to have, phenomenal, excellent technique, which I think is very good from the center position to have. This is a guy that's probably not going to need a lot of protection over the course of his rookie season because his technique is going to be better. Once he gets in, he should be able to pick it up faster. So I think at 34, I think Creed Humphreys is probably the pick for me because here's the thing. By the time you get to 66, Creed's not going to be there. And most likely Wyatt Davis isn't going to be there, and pretty much everyone's not going to be there. You might be able to get that tackle from Notre Dame later on in the draft who's converted to center that a lot of people were talking about, stuff like that. But I think there's a stark drop-off from the top guys, the Vera Tuckers and stuff, and then all of a sudden you get to the Wyatt Davis and then all of a sudden Creed Humphrey. So where the Jets pick at for me, I think they have to go offensive line. It may be too high. I think to pass on Newsome to get an offensive lineman at 23, I think might be a mistake. I think Newsome is the next tier of actual talent. And because at least on the offensive line, you could grab some guys and fill that out. But with the cornerbacks, dude, there's just really not much there at all. So if Newsome is sitting there, you take him at 23. At 34, you take Creed Humphreys. I like that. I like the beginning of how that's really getting started. Kevin, who do you have at 34 for yours?
Yeah, I was just going to add, I have Creed Humphrey. Definitely want him. And one thing, I wouldn't even be upset if we traded up from 34. Like if we moved one of the middle picks to make sure we got Creed Humphrey, jump to 30 or do what you got to do without giving up future draft picks, give up maybe 1 or 2 middle round picks in this draft to make sure we got Humphrey, I would lock that in. He's a former wrestler, very athletic, very flexible. I don't know if you guys have seen him like in his workouts, but he's just one of those guys who you can feel comfortable with. And to Daniel's earlier point on centers, Cincinnati took a center round 1. Price from Jamal Adams' draft. He was a first-round pick. They didn't pick up his 5th-year option. So there's a risk. Not every first-round pick that we take at center is going to be Nick Mangold. And Jets fans, you got to understand that, right? The Jets have a rich history at center, right? Kevin Mawai, Nick Mangold. We love the centers because we've had some awesome ones. We've had some of the best to ever play the game. So Jets fans, I just ask that if we get Humphrey, let him be him. He doesn't have to be Mawai. He doesn't have to be Mangold. But he can be his own centerpiece and his own guy. So sometimes, every time we see a guy, we've also had some bad centers. We had Spencer Long, and that was a disaster, right? That was literally right after. But I just feel like sometimes Jets fans kind of unfairly, because we've seen so many great centers, compare them. So Humphrey is one I want. There's a debate on if him or Dickerson are the best centers in this draft. Yeah. Except he doesn't have the injury history. He's got a clean bill of health. And like I said, a former wrestler. A lot of those guys are very, very successful for a long time in the NFL. And that gives them an advantage. And he's a guy I would love. And like I said, I might even trade one of the thirds if that's what it takes to get one of the up to the bottom of the first to make sure you get him. You just to have that in front of your center, in front of your young quarterback for 10 years is just, they'd probably be roommates, So I think it would be exciting for Jets fans. And if Humphrey doesn't fall there for some reason, I still think you can get one of the top guards there. I think there'll be somebody there that you can plug and play on the offensive line. So that's the only reason, to your point, I know you took a corner and I took a linebacker, but I think you can take one of the top defensive players at 23 because you're still going to get a quality offensive lineman at 34.
Sure.
The Jets can't forget that the defense needs help too. We have holes everywhere. So whether it's linebacker or corner, you got to plug a hole there too.
And with the offensive line, man, with John Benton, the new offensive line coach for the New York Jets, he runs that wide zone zone running scheme, and so I believe it's focused more on left to right in the second tier more than north south, as they're worried about in the second tier in the zone, and so they want guys who are going to be athletic up front. So the Jets most likely aren't going to be drafting like those big behemoths, guards who don't have really that much athletic ability in the second level. It's more like, they're pass rushing type of guards where they stop the pass. They can help you in the run, but they're not going to up in the first level, but they're not going to push into the second level. So you're going to need a back that can then go ahead and get you there. I don't. So the Jets, a guy like Humphries, I think it's important because his technique is very good. He's not a mauler like Mawai or like just a guy who's going to throw you around like Nick Mangold would. This guy, Creed Humphrey, is all technique. I think he's going to be well protected. I think the Jets are going to draft offensive linemen. I think they're going to draft at least a guard and a tackle as well in this draft, possibly. So, there's room for and remember, the Jets have, 9 picks next year as well or something like that. So, and Trader Joe, he's going to trade up and down, do some different things. You don't know what he'll be able to accumulate. You don't know any midseason trades that might happen. So there's different things that can happen throughout the course of the year that we're not really, sure about. So, but all I know is the Jets are in a really good place. If you got to start from ground zero, if you got to start from a 2-win team up, you can't ask for really a better situation than the Jets have right now. To have all those additional picks, because usually it's like, all right, we're going to get a new quarterback, but everything else is going to suck. And it's like, when you look at the Jets, because of their cap situation, they were able to do some things in free agency. They'll be able to do some things next year. And they have a lot of draft capital. So this rebuild doesn't really have to take as long as it should, but it does have to happen. And so, and it has to be done right. And there has to be guys brought here that fit the system and the scheme, not necessarily big names and talent. There's going to be a lot of struggles. You look at the Jets schedule, and again, you look at the AFC, the conference alone, it's not going to be easy. I could see the Jets winning 5-6 games for sure. That would be a successful season, in my opinion. Anything more than that is just gravy on the train. If you wind up happening to get a star quarterback out of your rookie where he just blossoms like a guy like Herbert. And I think the Jets have a better situation. Herbert may have had better names offensively with Henry, and then you have some other guys outside. But as far as a team is concerned, I think that Zach Wilson will be walking into a nice situation. I think the Jets will have a decent offensive line for a team that came off of 2 wins. I believe that they will improve from the bottom, pretty much the second and third on the bottom. I think they can move into that 15 to 18 range with this grouping if they're able to hit on a center like Creed or get a guard like Wyatt Davis, or there's some other guys that we have on our list, but I truly believe that. And so with the next pick, then
wait, before we go off that one, I actually have a question for you.
Sure.
And just from reading the comments and some of the names that they're throwing out in comments, right? So there's 2 positions that we didn't say that are very popular when you look down there before we get past those first 3 picks, because I think we both agree those first 3 picks are really, really important.
Right.
So a lot of people throw out running back names, and every once in a while you see some wide receiver like names in there, and there's some quality wide receivers. And maybe just to jump on that one is, I think you already referenced, right? We got Davis, we got Cole. You got a couple, and that's like 4 locked in. I do think that Joe learned the lessons of last year and the importance of depth there and how much we got hurt very quickly, and it sunk our season 100%. Wide receiver made everyone's life harder. So I think he addressed it. And I don't think you can add a receiver to Davis, Mims, Crowder. You almost have 3 guys that any given week can be like a number 1.
Right.
Like any given week, any of those guys could get 100 yards. And that's a matchup problem going into games. There should be an advantage going into most weeks. So I don't think you got 10 million this year you're giving to Crowder. More than 10 million you're giving this year to Davis because most of his money is front loaded, so you can get out of his deal easy. So I don't think you can drop a first round salary or high second round salary on a receiver right now. And not that it would hurt your cap too much. I just don't think your investment in a long-term rookie deal for 4 to 5 years, depending on first or second, I think you invest that into another position in another area because you're going to spend a little bit on receiver. And running back, then this is just my opinion, San Francisco and Mike LaFleur's offense, he runs the Shanahan offense. If the offensive line works and the offensive line is doing their job, anybody can play running back. That's the Shanahan system. That's what was winning Super Bowls in Denver. That's what made picking a fantasy running back off the San Francisco 49ers for the last how many years? I don't even know how many years. Since Gore was young. Tough. Because San Francisco, under Shanahan, has just rotated running back. So I know I've seen Harris a lot in the names down there. ATN is in some of the names in the comments. I think Joe Douglas feels if you fix the O-line, you don't need a running back that high. But what do you think, Guru? You're seeing some of the names down there?
I mean, listen, I'm not going to hate it if Najee Harris is our running back. Like, if you're able to get Zach Wilson, Najee Harris, and then let's say with the 34th pick, you wind up picking up Creed Humphrey or Wyatt Davis or someone else like that, I think that you could be happy with that for sure. But honestly, again, if Greg Newsome is sitting there, I just really think it's going to be tough to pass on him. I just think he's too talented of a cornerback, and this team needs cornerbacks, so you're not guaranteed what the class next year is going to look at, and they start dropping off heavy pretty much after the first and middle to late second round. So, and by then you're going to need offensive linemen because then there's a stark drop off at center. So it depends on where the Jets want to do it. I mean, to me, there's a few running backs in this class that are just really good and they're not getting a good look. I mean, we'll get into it a little bit further as far as the running backs concerned. I'm not going to be mad if I see a guy like Najee Harris or Etienne at 34, as long as I know you're getting me a top end, at least in this draft, offensive lineman, and you're taking care of like either 2 offensive linemen, you got your quarterback, or a quarterback, running back, offensive lineman. But like, it's to me, it's just going to be tough, to pass on someone. But again, Greg Newsome could get taken ahead of time. And if that happens and you don't really like the cornerback market that high at 23, then you start looking at Creed Humphrey and some of the other guys. And if they're getting pushed back because of the quarterback backlog that's up at top, you got picks that are stacked at the bottom of the first, top of the second. Then you could say, okay, well, let's change this up now. Maybe we can get a guy like Najee because all of our offensive linemen that we want are going to be there waiting for us most likely at 34, or at least one of them. So then it makes sense if a guy like Newsome is gone. It makes sense if your linebacker that you picked out of Notre Dame is gone, Kevin. So then it starts opening up that possibility. I mean, that's what's so great about this draft is the Jets could take it really in any direction that they want to go. And that's what makes it so special and so fun this time around, because there is no pressure. You're a rebuilding team in a tough division, and you're going to improve really wherever you pick, as long as you hit. Obviously, if you pick a bum and he's a bum, then, I mean, what are you going to do about it? But I mean, you're in a position now, and what these guys are being projected at, the Jets are going to get 2 or 3 quality players. They're probably going to hit big time on at least 1 out of the 3 of those top 3 guys, most likely even 2 out of the 3, because they're going to be drafting for scheme. They're going to be put in a situation where they're probably going to succeed. And I think just, it needs to meet that number, right? Like Joe is the same way, I believe, in signing players where he's not going to overpay for a certain position. I don't think he's going to draft a guy and jump too high out of position when he knows there's other value around. So I think at the number 66 pick, I got them picking Jabril Cox. And the reason why is for the same reasons Kevin said for his first pick of the draft, only I think the Jets wanted to get some things out of the way first on the offensive side of the ball. and they go ahead and get Jabril Cox, who's one of the best coverage linebackers. He's a true 4-3 outside linebacker. You know, he had 58 total tackles, 6 for a loss, 3 interceptions, a pick 6, 5 pass deflections in 10 games. You know, with his length and speed, he could cause havoc in the passing game, and he can actually attack from that position. And as we know, the outside linebacker is going to be important in this defensive scheme under Saleh. And so a guy like Jabril, I think you're getting excellent value at where you're picking right there, because you're most likely going to get your center or your guard, your quarterback, a cornerback, or 2 offensive linemen before you even get to Cox. So when you pick him, you feel like, wow, I really got a pick here because I already got 3 guys ahead of him that I'm set with. Now I got him. Kevin, who do you have at pick 66? Your audio's out, Kevin.
Good thing you said something.
Get some headphones.
I love Cox too. I'm a big fan of him. I actually have him with my next pick, but I went with Stokes because I hadn't taken a cornerback yet. As you just referenced, I had gone obviously Wilson at 2, linebacker with our next pick in Humphrey. So Stokes is a cornerback out of Georgia. Obviously faced elite competition. He's a big physical corner, but has good size for zone. And I honestly think he would convert well to zone. So he's 6'1", faced the Alabama receiver, so he's faced elite competition, and I think would be a good transition to zone. But I would love Cox as well. I actually have him at 86, hoping that he falls that fast. He only had 1 elite year at LSU because he's a JUCO transfer, but super fast, super athletic, another big hitter. He was also used a lot in coverage. I think that would be a fantastic value, whether we get him at 66 or 86. I don't care which round we get him in. He would be another one that would have me very excited. He's an exciting player to watch at camp. Plays very, very fast. He's just one of those guys in the SEC that's all over the field. So I think that's a great pick by you too.
Yeah, and honestly, to be honest with you, I just don't know if he is going to be around, and that's why I have the Jets taking him a little bit higher. I don't know if he's going to be around at 86. At 86, I got Michael Carter. I just think this could be the sleeper pick out of the whole draft for me with Michael Carter. I think, he split carries with Williams, who's the more featured back. He's the one that's going to go a lot higher than Michael Carter. But when you look at what Carter was able to do, I think it's pretty impressive because he put together over 2,500 rushing yards with somebody taking reps from him. Just shows you, and how that works perfectly with what the 49ers, with what the Jets are going to do here, most likely with their running back by committee. I think you get good value with Carter there at 86. And I think, you get a guy who's a 2-headed back who has really good pass catching skills, something that's going to be valuable in the LaFleur offense. And so I really think, a team captain, that's a guy that Joe Douglas, as you noticed in his first draft, kind of targets those types of guys. I really think that if he was the featured back in North Carolina, he probably goes a little bit higher than he does now. But, in that split carry system that we've seen throughout college, we've seen this happen before where a guy plays with another dynamic back, doesn't get a lot of shine, but he's a good NFL pro because it's hard to really get, national shine when one guy's there. There's 2 guys there, so that's just how it is. I think Michael Carter could be an excellent, excellent pick for the New York Jets in a rotation feature with Coleman and whoever else they decide to keep. I'm pretty sure Joe just drafted Perrine. He's going to be in the mix as well. They just re-signed Josh Adams. And so, I'm super excited about that at 86. So who do you have at 86, Kevin?
So I have Cox, who I already referenced.
Right.
Like I said, I think we need – I said before, I think we need 3 linebackers. I expect us to draft 2, add 3 to the roster. These would be 2 long-term, very fast, very athletic guys that when I talk about zone coverage, if you had these 2 linebackers, I also think the Jets are going to get out of the Mosley deal as soon as they can. As soon as they can get out of paying a middle linebacker almost $20 million a year, they're going to do that. So having 2 fast, athletic linebackers would be outstanding. But I have a running back going next, but I also love Carter. I'm a super duper fan. I thought he had a great Senior Bowl. I thought just what you said about him in college, the running back I compare him to is the college situation was at Auburn when they had Cadillac Williams and Ronnie Brown.
There it
And
is.
both those guys were outstanding, and both of them were good pros in their own way. But Ronnie Brown was like a little bit better, even though Cadillac Williams was the guy at Auburn. Everybody knew Cadillac Williams. And, I mean, Cadillac was okay in Tampa, but I could see Carter having that same type of 900 yards rushing every year. And Ronnie Brown had a couple thousand yards, but pretty much you could pencil him in for 700 to 900. Split running back situation and fits our scheme perfectly. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He can rotate in and out. I don't think he's been in this type of situation. He's not going to cry when it's a running back by committee system. He's used to that.
Yeah.
So from a culture standpoint, I think he could fit in. He could come in and out, talk to the coaches, and he's a leader guy, high character guy. He's perfect for a Joe Douglas type of player. So I'm worried that as we plug the other holes, that he's a guy who gets stolen from us, because I do think he showed a lot of those leadership things at the Senior Bowl, and he looked awesome that week. He was one of my favorite players. He would have been one of my top favorite players from watching the Senior Bowl. So he would be a great addition to the roster, just like you said.
Absolutely. And then when you get to 107, I have Kendrick Green, the guard from Illinois. He's the defensive lineman who converted to guard. A lot of explosive power there. He's still a little bit raw, but I think at 107, I think, you could probably put him in a depth role, let him learn, knowing that the offensive system is going to be here for more than 2 years. He has the athletic ability to fit in this wide zone blocking system that I think is going to be important to have athletic guys at the guard position. And I believe also he could play center as well. So you have a guy who could come in and fill in at multiple positions, which is good. I'm assuming that we're going to see Cameron Clark at some point, who can also play two positions. So I think be able to have a little bit of versatility, also considering how much offensive linemen get hurt. You've seen the Jets be ravaged by injury over the last couple of years. So have some guys that can move in and out. I think that's really important. But I think he fits the system. I think he's a strong guy, a guy that's got to work on the technique a little bit. But he's one of those guys that I think you could kind of play around with and all of a sudden maybe find someone really worthwhile there at that position. And I'm just going to do two back-to-back, and then you give me yours. I also have at 146, I have Jalen Darden, the wide receiver from North Texas, small school, small in stature, only 5'7". He's kind of could be, I think, a gadget guy in this system, a very creative guy that LaFleur can use in and out. Obviously, he projects as more of a slot guy, very productive where he was at as a player. Again, his biggest problem is just not being a big guy. At all. And so, I mean, but I at that position, I think you can move him around in Keelan Cole's position. He's a very, very high productive, returner. I think with all the pre-snap movement, having a guy like this could be very tricky to keep up with. I've seen how the Bears, when, they seemed like they knew what they were doing a couple years ago to start with, the way they used that small running back that they have, Tyreek Cohen. I think you could use Jalen Darden like that similarly. And I like that position there. I also thought about maybe a guy like Milne that far, the receiver that at BYU, that Zach played with, because I think having some familiarity, I know that you have a tackle that played at BYU who graded absolutely outstanding. I think to have some kind of familiarity at all, I think that would be great. Not to select a guy just out of BYU just to select them, but, a lineman and a wide receiver, I think wouldn't be such a bad idea. That has familiarity with your rookie quarterback, especially because of all the new moving pieces that you have. So what do you have for those next two picks, Kevin?
Yeah, so I went back to running back, Gainwell out of Memphis. He's a player who had almost 1,500 yards rushing and 600 yards receiving. I think he'd be good value there. He didn't play in 2020, but ran a 4.42 40 at his pro day. He's got a lot of speed, very versatile, and very good value for where I think you can get him, which is the only reason I had. I think there's a lot of value at running back in this class. I like Hubbard. I like Carter. That's the other reason I'm not pressed to get one of the top three running backs, even though I think they all would be awesome. And then at my next pick, I took the tackle Christensen from BYU. It's funny because everybody talks about how amazing Wilson's offensive line is. And I don't think he'd be pressed to play. I think you can sit him behind Fant and Becton, get the reps in, get the workout in, get the tape. It's a big, adjustment. And I think he could be a long-term solution. So he's another guy. I tried to grab 2 players I thought were good value based on where you could get them in the draft. I think system fits. Gainwell is very obvious, and Kristen would be one that needs to be coached up a little bit. But, that's when you're at the middle of the draft. They don't have to be, day one elite starters. They can be younger players that develop. So I'd be very excited if we got those 2.
Awesome picks there as well. And then for my final pick, and I believe that Joe Douglas is going to make a trade somewhere in here, which we wind up losing a pick this year in the mix. That's why I don't have a final one. I do like the kicker, Borealis. I think that, listen, Joe's been here enough now. Picking up guys off the heap, that hasn't really worked out for him. And so I think that, you have a late round pick. You've gotten your offensive lineman, maybe 1, 2. You've gotten a linebacker or 2. You've gotten a corner. You've got your starting quarterback. You've possibly got a running back. You've gotten some holes that you filled, and you've also have some free agent cuts. Not free agent, some roster cuts that'll happen in camp. I think at this point, I think maybe you kind of hit, I think, on the punter. So I think maybe you go deep here. You get a kicker who has a good leg that can, extend the ball. Someone who's been, one of the leading scorers at FIU before he transferred to Miami. I think you go ahead and pick him up. And then I also have the Jets picking up defensive end, interior defensive lineman, Milton Williams. He scored a 9.98 RAS, which is like an athletic ability test that they grade this out of a possible 10, which ranked 4 out of 1,300 defensive ends from 87 to 2001. He's a versatile player that could be moved inside and out, strong guy. I think you could take a chance with him and maybe hit on a late round pick there. Again, smaller build, I think, but when you look at these smaller builds for these guys, but you look at San Francisco, what they were able to do with, they didn't have, I think, behemoths or anything on their defensive lines for San Francisco. And then when you look at this style, you have to be able to be flexible and get to the quarterback. And as far as the linebackers are concerned, in this defense, they're going to have to be able to cover. And so covering means that you have to have speed. So to be able to stay with the guys. So I think that's going to be the focus for the New York Jets in this draft on defense. They're going to be looking for guys who are athletic, that have good coverage skills, that have, and on the offensive side of the ball, I think they're going to be looking for guards, again, who could fit the blocking system, which they intend to run, because it's all going to go on hand in hand. That wide zone blocking system with the play calling that LaFleur puts together is all going to have the success that they've had, running the ball, that like Kevin stated in the Shanahan system. I think that it has to work all together. So you're going to see the Jets look at that, guys who are athletic, not exactly, you're going to see the Jets draft someone like Deontay Brown. You're not going to see probably the Jets draft a guy like that, just a guy who's just a big monster, but it's not going to give you the second level push that you need with the athletic ability. And so I think the Jets are going to cover a lot of holes in this draft. So, I'm super excited to get ready to go. The draft is live. I don't know if they got started exactly yet, but, what do you think? I mean, you look at this, Kevin, every single year, and let me get your last picks. And then also I want you to talk a little bit. Every quarterback, it seems like every year there's guys that hit and there's guys that don't, and it doesn't matter where you're drafted. It seems like more of the scheme in the scenario, but even that doesn't protect you, even if you have everything right. When you look at this draft class, I mean, where do you think a guy like Zach Wilson fits ultimately within this draft class? And where do you think a guy like Trevor Lawrence fits in this draft class going to Jacksonville? Because obviously it's always going to come down. This is going to be it. It's going to be one of the stories years and years, talked about years and years from now, where the Jets won 2 last meaningless games with a quarterback that they wind up getting rid of anyways, and a coach and a defensive coordinator they wind up getting rid of anyways, and missing out on the Trevor Lawrence parade to draft Zach Wilson, who was a bust. I think that headline right there, we could see it written, right? I mean, you got to be honest with yourself as a Jet fan. It's one of the scariest things that you just feel, because the Jets usually don't do well at this. But we've also seen guys with just as much hype as Trevor Lawrence not do anything in the NFL either. So where do you ultimately see these guys fit based on your eyes, what you've seen?
Yeah. answer the question first and then get to my picks maybe right after that, because I think that's a great question. We were just here, right? Talking Rosen and Mayfield and Sam and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and who was the better fit and all of these things. And from a prospect wise, there was a lot of talent there. All these guys had a lot of talent, and some guys got put in better positions to succeed and some didn't. There's some names in this: Lawrence, Wilson, and Fields. Josh Allen was way more raw. Josh Allen was way more raw than those three quarterbacks that I just named. Way more raw. At Wyoming, not even close. The level of coaching that he got at Wyoming versus what these guys, I don't care. Talk about level of competition all you want. Wilson already beat USC and Tennessee. He beat an SEC team. He beat the hell out of USC in a bad season. He didn't have a good year last year, and he beat the hell out of USC and beat Tennessee. So, and why Josh Allen didn't have any zero major conference wins, zero. And in those games, 0 touchdowns and 7 picks. Josh Allen was hot trash against conference teams. But he got the right coach matched up with the right QB that only asked him to do what he did well. And for the first couple of years we were on Guru, there wasn't a whole lot he was doing well. We talked about it all the time. We weren't overly impressed when we watched him play. When you watched his playoff game last year?
The year before, yeah.
Oh, the year before, right.
Yeah.
His second year, that's what I meant. He fumbling it backwards and doing all kinds of crazy, stupid, making throws where you would just grab your head and was like, what went through his mind when he made that decision? But the right coordinator got him to do enough of the things that he does well and didn't ask him to do a lot of the things he didn't do well. Honestly, we asked for that for Sam for the whole time we had Sam. Rollout, bootlegs. We talked about it every single show, every week, tirelessly. I just wish we don't have to bring it up now because we talked about it so much then. We wanted them to use Sam the way we envisioned.
Yeah.
And look, the best thing about today, you have a GM that has 3 Super Bowls. You have a coach who's been to 3 and won 1. You have an offensive coordinator who's been to a Super Bowl and lost 1. And they're picking their quarterback, who they think will run Mike LaFleur's system the best. And his characteristics and the things he's going to ask him to do, they think they can set him up for success. And they're not going to ask him to do every single thing day one. That's not how a quarterback is successful. Solid even reference. He's had nothing but rookie quarterbacks almost his whole way up through. He's always had young quarterbacks. Russell Wilson, when he was in Seattle, young. He had to deal with Blake Bortles. And they were getting little playoffs every year with Blake Bortles. He had to find a way to win and only ask QB to do only what they do well. So whoever we take number 2, even though I'm sure we all have Zach Wilson, I'm pretty sure it's Zach Wilson, the little things he does, guys, you got to be excited about what Zach Wilson does. His body language, you can get mad at the Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers comparison. It's not about how he plays and his throws and oh my God and oh my. It's the body language, the way he conducts himself, the little flows, the little flicks, the way he moves around. He just has a thing. Just Fields doesn't. He has other things he does well, but it's not quite like that. There's a little magic in what he does, and it might work and it might not. And hopefully the coaches can hone it in. But you got to be excited about that. Now, with Lawrence, I mean, is he Andrew Luck? He's not going into a good situation.
No.
Everybody said, remember when we had the number 1 pick and everyone was like, Lawrence should demand a trade. He's going to a team that wants less home games. They want to play in London. He's not even going to get 8 home games, right? That's their goal, is to get to London. Imagine being a Jets fan and saying we only got 6 home games a year to go to. That would suck.
Yeah.
That's a fan base that he's going into. They're talking about bringing in Tim Tebow. That's a circus. That's a circus. Talk about a circus atmosphere. Imagine if the Jets were bringing in Tim Tebow for workouts.
Oh, man, forget it.
Could you imagine the press and the media if we were bringing in Tim Tebow? Stephen A. Smith would have a 30-minute rant about the Jets bringing in Tim Tebow. Write that down. It's a fact.
Yep.
Every newspaper, it will be the front page on the day we have the draft. Imagine you're Trevor Lawrence getting drafted today, and the front page is Tim Tebow. Are you kidding me? Talk about a circus.
Oh, it's so
Lawrence
Jets.
Should be demanding to get traded right now. If this was the Jets, everybody in the media would say, Trevor Lawrence, you're going into – wait. So your coach Urban Meyer already had to have one coach fired. He has another coach who was fired in college for making racist remarks or something that he brought into the NFL with him. Urban Meyer has quit how many jobs now with his own issues? He's bringing in Tim Tebow, and Trevor Lawrence is walking into that circus on a team that wants to go to London.
There's one more. There's one more too, Kevin.
Oh,
There's
go
one
ahead.
more. Trevor Lawrence gets hurt. Tim Tebow then comes in, right, because he's the most qualified quarterback on the Jaguars roster at that point. And then Tim Tebow comes back, baby, and starts winning games like he used to win. And now you have Trevor Lawrence in this scenario where he's got to play against the hometown kid, basically, who's loved everywhere and is actually winning now, and you're the rookie having to learn and come back and play. Awful scenario for Mr. Trevor Lawrence.
Terrible.
I think, and we've spoken about this, and we're not going to get too crazy into it. We spoke about this on Jets Guru audio podcast that you can find anywhere you listen to podcasts. Just type in Jets Guru. We've talked about this several times during the year. Josh Allen went to a place where they allowed him to be Josh Allen. Lamar Jackson went to the Baltimore Ravens. Did they say, let's make him into a drop back passer and tell him to stop running? Let's, like Washington tried to do with RG3 and like RG3 tried to do with himself. Like, you just play into what got you into the league in the first place. And if you are a good coach, you will design plays and schemes that will translate onto the field, because what you need ultimately is not an attitude and not a this or that. You need the talent. You need the speed. Oh, I got speed at quarterback. Okay, how can I design a better way to use his speed? And we always spoke about how Sam just wasn't used correctly, how they brought in the guru of quarterbacks to make Sam be what Adam Gase wanted him to be, which was Peyton Manning. And he's not Peyton Manning. And he's more athletic than what you think. And I think Matt Rule is going to use that a lot better than what Adam Gase and the Jets were able to do. And I think out of all the quarterbacks who were projected to go places, the Mac Jones, the Trey Lance, the Trevor Lawrence, I think, in my personal opinion, right now as we sit, that Zach Wilson is going to the best possible place for what his skill set is. And I know that sounds crazy because it's the New York Jets, and someone's going to be watching this and say, Dan, you're a super homer. But I truly believe that Zach Wilson is going into the perfect scenario for him. He's going to a defensive head coach that understands the ability to let his staff work offensively. This is not Rex Ryan, who is all defense, go home or running or going home. This is a head coach, okay, that is going to allow LaFleur to run his offense like Shanahan ran his offense and like his brother's running his offense in Green Bay, when Aaron Rodgers wants to run it. And I believe that Wilson fits that offense. I believe that the draft capital that's around him, I believe the money to be able to sign free agents that are around him, I think this all benefits Zach Wilson. Sam Darnold, and it's kind of crazy because obviously we know that Sam Darnold came into a bad situation, but it's going to look really bad when Zach Wilson and this New York Jets team gets put together, because this team is going to look dramatically better than it did last year, even if we don't win a lot of games. It's just there's going to be better talent here, and the talent's going to fit what they want to do. So ultimately, the transition from rookie or free agent to understanding the system is going to be easier because you're bringing in players that fit what you're going to do. You're not bringing in linebackers and running back and receivers who don't even fit the system in which they're playing. So when you put someone in a system where his talent meets what you want to do, the transition from understanding that system and actually pushing it out on the field, and not just pushing it out on the field and playing, but implementing it in such a way where you're playing freely, that you're not overthinking, right? Because when you first learn something, you're overthinking, right? Because you're trying to recall it, but there's nothing really to recall because you haven't been repetitive. You haven't done it enough. But when you're playing in a system that allows you to be free athletically, it makes the thinking less. And Saleh is only going to ask these players, LaFleur is only going to ask these players to do what they're capable of doing and what he asks them to do, nothing more, nothing less. And I believe that makes you play faster. And so all those things make you play faster. And what does it also do? It's smoother when you bring in guys who fit what you want to do. And smoother is ultimately faster because you make less mistakes and you recall things faster. So I believe smoother is faster. The Jets are running this organization right now, this new little thing they have going pretty smoothly right now. We'll see if they're able to translate it over the next 2 to 3 years. I think the first pick is coming in pretty soon here. If, I'm talking, but he's talking, let's get this over with because we already know where everyone's going unless there's some kind of bombshell thing that happens. And so I don't know if we'll get shut down or not if we do the audio for the draft, but we can try. So go ahead and throw some of that audio on, I guess, in the background, and we'll get to the first pick. That should be coming anytime now. Does she get like the prime seat there? Yeah, when they draft Najee Harris for pick 1, she's not going to be happy.
The 2020
Mac Jones.
NFL
Imagine.
draft is now officially open. The Jacksonville Jaguars are now on the clock.
All right, so the Jaguars are on the clock now. Obviously, we think Trevor Lawrence is going to be the pick. You could keep that video up.
And everywhere.
Yeah, you can keep that video up. Just shut the audio off until the pick's ready to be announced. But yeah, it's going to be Trevor Lawrence. We just spoke about it before. I don't think it's a good scenario. I guess Minshew is still on board. I like Gardner Minshew. I think he would be a great backup pretty much anywhere. Makes limited mistakes. I think he could be sort of like Tyrod Taylor in this league where he could find a home as long as he improves on his decision making. But honestly, he doesn't really make a lot of costly mistakes. He just doesn't push the needle. He's not going to be a guy that's going to win you a game consistently. Has a little bit of a gunslinger mentality. He can maybe win you some games and stretches, but not push the needle every game, which puts you into that elite level. So I understand them going this route. Absolutely, and getting a quarterback. I mean, ultimately, I love Trevor Lawrence's skill set. I just don't like Urban Meyer, and I don't like the Jacksonville Jaguars. And when you highlight what Kevin was able to do, what was able to say about the team and them wanting to go to London and this and that and the back and forth, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a good scenario, for this kid.
It goes back to what we were talking about being a success as part of your environment. And he's not walking into a stable environment. Literally, his exact storyline is what they make about the Jets every single time, even when it's not that. So I don't think he's being set up for success. It's one of those things where you say, well, is he walking into a good situation? I even think they have some good young players, man. I like Laviska Shenault, who they got last year. I like some of their young receivers that they added. But I don't think Urban Meyer's the guy, like you said. I don't know if his system is going to be successful. We've seen the Chip Kellys. We've seen the Nick Sabans. We've seen these guys come in and think that they can take what they did in college and be successful. And both of our good friend Euros, we were talking about it this morning. It's a lot harder to yell at millionaires and just treat them like, to get them to fall in line with everything you say. Sometimes they're going to ask you why and expect you to explain it to them. And you can't treat them like kids. So it's going to be interesting to see if this transition is successful. But one thing I can tell you, Mr. Smith, is I am glad we didn't hire Urban Meyer. I'm glad this is a Jags problem and not a Jets problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I am too. And honestly, I really wanted Trevor Lawrence to be the quarterback of the New York Jets. I really like his mental makeup. I just think I don't think you're going to see this kid press too much. A lot of people made a lot about what he said as if he just didn't have the passion or the drive to be great. And basically what he was saying is that, there's more to life. It's pretty much, there's more to all this than just football. And he's absolutely right. And you got to remember what these kids were dealing with, or young men, what they've been dealing with the last year or so, including, if I'm not mistaken, getting COVID himself. And so, it changes your outlook on life. This country has been living differently, and he still had to go out and travel and play games and get sick, and, maybe had friends or family pass away. And this has been a very reflective time, not for young people all across the United States. I think you'll wind up finding, as years go on, that you'll see a little bit more maturity from the kids that grew up in this age, that understand things, just because things are a little bit different, a little bit more serious, a little bit more bubbled because of what we had to deal with the virus. And I think that's just pretty much what he was highlighting. I mean, he seems like a good kid to me. I mean, when you watch him play, he looks, pretty motivated to me. And, I think he's going to be a solid pro. It's just, again, I just don't like the direction in which the Jaguars are going. Again, I think it would be a better scenario for Trevor Lawrence to come to the Jets. I think it would be better for most of these quarterbacks to come to the Jets. I do like what San Francisco is doing. This is a team that is 1 year removed from the Super Bowl. They had a ton of injuries last year that really hurt them. They did lose a lot of staff, and they're going to have to, but they've got the main guy there. And, I believe that if they find a quarterback that works and they have a good transition there, if they want to keep in Jimmy G and, whatever it is, Mac Jones takes over, I think that you have a good system. You still have a lot of good players there that are coming back from injury. I think that's another good spot for a quarterback to wind up going. Atlanta might be another good spot. And the reason why I say that is I don't think Matt Ryan's quite done yet. And so I think that the quarterback that goes there is not going to be pressured to play right away. I think when Julio Jones ultimately gets traded this year or next year or whatever it is, you still have a guy like Calvin Ridley to throw to, and you could start rebuilding there. So I think Atlanta is a good spot. Carolina is, I think, a great spot. They've got some weapons out there. They did bring in Sam Darnold for a reason. They did give up good, picks for him. And so I believe that no matter if they draft a quarterback, I believe Sam Darnold's pretty much the starter unless he bombs out in camp or preseason or whatever. And so I believe that at this time, I think Carolina will be a good spot for young quarterbacks. So there's a few good spots. I think the Jets, with what all they have to work with, I think is and because it's so new, right? So you're really going to be able to mold. You're not going to have to walk in with any expectations. I think with San Francisco, there could be expectations thrown on a young quarterback fairly quickly. And I'm really wondering why Jacksonville's taking so damn long to make their pick, unless they're really trying to shake this up here. But I mean, I don't think that's it. But it's like, come on, man, just make the call so you can move on to the next one.
It's coming up. Pick is in. They drafted. Let's hope it's not another Byron Leftwich situation as I go through the names. Leftwich and Gabbert. I agree with you on your Minshew point, though. I would grab him to be a backup in a second if they let him go, or if we could get him for a low pick. I think he'd be a good addition.
Absolutely. So they're getting ready to make this pick here now? Did they select him yet?
They're clapping in the Jacksonville war room.
Excellent. Now make the pick so we can get to the Jets.
Overwhelming relief. After all, his love affair with Lawrence started 2 years ago. First time he saw him play in person, he was so impressed with his size and then his toughness. He saw him get speared.
He was so impressed with his size.
Rally his team to a win. He saw how his teammates respected him. That, he said, was seared in his soul. Now,
he looks like a thumb, dude. His head, right? Like
on three quarterbacks, but once
it just goes like there and goes like straight down. That's Trevor Lawrence.
Into actual installation. They have been installing the Jags offense with
the Guru and Trevor Lawrence
since February. Once they got through the 5 Zooms, then everything has been on the
phone. Our feed? How late is our feed? The one that we're watching says 2:32. The one on my TV says 3:39.
Lawrence will be the day 1 starter. He doesn't believe in throwing a young quarterback to the Wolves. He watched what happened.
David Nance says he heard a rumor the Jets might trade with the Browns for the number 12 pick. If that happens, JD wins the draft on the first night.
Beat up in almost every imaginable
what?
way. He said,
The Jets
"That
are drafting
really
a quarterback
scarred
at
him
number
as a coach
2.
and will
Hey,
never
how far are
let
we
that
behind,
happen
Kevin?
to a young quarterback again."
They just announced Lawrence right now.
Okay. Let's see how far we're behind it.
Oh, so we're about 2 minutes if they're taking it all the way down the clock. So you could turn the audio off for that.
No, they didn't take it all the way down. It should be coming up.
Oh my gosh, they restarted the clock. Would they just pick the man already? My gosh. So all right, so yeah, so we're in here and the Jets get ready to pick next, and super stoked because we're gonna have a new quarterback, and his mom's pretty good looking too. So you for the older Jet fans there, you get a little something. For the younger Jet fans too, they might like the mom vibe that you got going on there, but that's been the chatter that I've seen. It seems like more people are interested in Zach Wilson's mom than they are of Zach Wilson throwing touchdowns for the New York Jets. But the one thing that I hate so much about the whole discussion with Zach Wilson is the fact that, people aren't allowing the kid to throw a pass in a Jets uniform yet before they're saying he's going to be a dud just based on the Jets priors. And we discussed before, this isn't like Todd Bowles or Adam Gase picking a quarterback. This is a guy that's in a system and people who are all brought here together to pick a guy. And I just think that when you do that more times than not and everyone's locked in, you're going to find some success because everyone's on board. And these are candidates, guys like Saleh, guys like LaFleur, guys like Joe Douglas. These are all guys who were going to be hot commodities on the free agent market as coaches and executives, regardless if the Jets pick them up or not. So to have, the type of talent from a front office and a coaching perspective, considering how badly we've played, I think as Jet fans, you have to be really excited about that people are still willing to come here. So, and turn this over and see what happens. So you could keep the audio off if they already said it's Trevor Lawrence. Don't even have to worry about that. But Kevin, looking at Zach Wilson's talent level, what he's able to do, I also agree. It just looks different when he throws the football than what we've seen from some of the other guys. Just the way what he puts into his throws, his body mechanics, his motion. It's just something that I just absolutely enjoy watching. I think that he puts everything into his throws. He doesn't really, there's no hesitation in his game. I think that his body and his mind are synced in one. The one thing I didn't like about Sam Darnold, he always looked puzzled, as if he didn't know what he was, where he wanted to go with the football. Even early on in his career, he looked a little hesitant, and it just kind of grew as time went on. I think the body language, as Kevin said, the confidence that you're going to see from this kid coming out, I think is going to be really awesome too. I do hope that the New York Jets consider getting a legit backup quarterback in the room somehow. I still believe that you want that push, especially as a young person, you want to push them a little bit because obviously you get drafted number 2, you want to start. I mean, these kids have been starting since they were in middle school for most of them. No one's played in front of them, especially when you're as talented as some of these guys. You're sitting looking at the veteran in front of you and you're saying, this guy ain't going to take a spot from me. That's not happening. And so I think that if you get a good veteran there, I was hoping someone even like an Alex Smith, just to play a couple games and just to kind of get Zach used to just being there and just watching the offense run in a full live game setting, I think would be awesome. Most likely this kid is going to start day one, which I don't have a problem with either. Listen, I am in the mindset like this, and this is how I look at everything. You keep drafting quarterbacks until one works out. Keep drafting them because one is going to shine, one is going to pop, one is going to stand out among the rest, especially if you put coaches and stuff around them. But I'm going to let these guys talk for just a little bit. I don't know how far behind we are, but once Zach Wilson gets picked,
it's about 2 minutes and 20 seconds behind.
About 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay, nice.
Yeah.
If you guys let me, what's up?
No, that was his mom.
That is his mom. See, I'm telling you, man. People are just gonna keep talking about it the whole time. You got to remember too, we're getting old, dude. Right? We're not young anymore. We're not in our 20s anymore. So it's like, we're getting older, and so these kids that we're looking at that are 20, their moms are gonna be almost around our age, and so that's just how it goes as you get older, man. This Jets thing, it's wearing me down, but my beard is still popping though. It's the life of a Jet fan. You just keep getting older and older, and the winning isn't as prevalent as you want it to be. But we're trying to change it, and this is the way that you do.
One of the things I want you guys to watch on these highlights that separates Wilson from some of the other quarterbacks is how well he plays with his back to the secondary. Literally, that throw that he just threw right there, after the snap, he turns his back to the secondary. He does the play action fake and then comes back, reads the coverage, and gets the ball out. That's one of the things when you were talking about his fit in the system. We're going to be a run-heavy offense. It's the Shanahan system. I do think we're going to have a platoon system. We are going to run the ball, but and I don't know why it froze right there, but I think Wilson. The thing that impresses me about him, and it goes back to what I said, ask him to do what he does well. But he's a play-action quarterback. He's played under center before. He's not a guy who just sat out a shotgun and did different read option plays, which is a big challenge when you're scouting quarterbacks in college. What they do there is the same thing they're asked to do in the NFL. Turning your backs to the secondary means when you get your head turned back around, the secondary is not going to be where they were in your pre-snap read, and you got to adjust and make the right read and get the ball out quick. It's really, really hard. But you see it a lot in those highlight films. So what he's going to do in our offense that separates him from Fields, who was playing out of shotgun the majority and in a one-read offense, is he does execute a lot of plays in college off the run game, more than you usually see. Lawrence did too because he was playing with Etienne, but it was a lot of read option offense, and that's not what we do. I think that's the reason why Fields quickly elevated past Wilson quickly elevated past Darnold and past Fields in the draft process. He just does those little things so well. And I think Jets fans should be very excited. They're literally walking up right now to make it pick on the live feed.
Yep, and you see how excited the war room is. And you could just take the audio off, JR, because we're just going to be hearing old audio anyways. You look at the war room, you look how excited they are. You saw how giddy Joe Douglas was at Zach Wilson's pro day, and everybody was out there, Well, I was going to let you guys hear the pick announcement, but it's like 2 minutes delayed. So what's the point? Everyone's going to be like, we drafted Zach Wilson. Like, all right, well, you still want to hear the announcement, or you can just watch the clip later on ESPN. So
they
it's
just
hard.
announced it. Zach Wilson was just announced as the quarterback of the New York Jets. He's walking up to the podium right now.
That's awesome. So, once Zach gets on stage,
he's slapping everyone's hands, like walking down, like he's like over the top slapping everyone's hands. Super excited, super energetic. That's one thing we didn't get from Sam. Just not a lot of good, bad, or in the middle. We didn't get a lot of him pulling receivers aside, pulling running backs aside, jumping into the huddle. He didn't play with a lot of energy. I can tell you in the first 3 minutes of Zach Wilson, you're seeing more energy than Sam's whole career here.
Yeah, and it's super exciting. Like, again, it sucks that Sam Darnold didn't work out. I'd rather have Darnold be a superstar than have to do this again and use these picks on, maybe just different talent in different places. But at the end of the day, like a friend just texted me just now, and he goes, as we're doing the show, and he goes, "Oh, time to see what player the Jets franchise is going to ruin next." And I said, maybe, I said, new start, new opportunities. And I truly believe that. And I think it's an honest response for myself, because maybe it can happen. Maybe Zach Wilson isn't the guy. Maybe it just doesn't all come together. But maybe it does work. And if it's going to work, it's going to work with the grouping that I think we have in the building right now, because I think it fits exactly what this kid needs. Like, just like we spoke about Josh Allen, and, we spoke about Lamar Jackson, and we spoke about Kyler Murray, and we spoke about all these guys. You're going to have guys like Deshaun Watson and Dan Marino and John Elway, guys you could put on any team and they're going to just shine and be stars. And then you have guys that need to go to systems to help them get started before they could really break out on their own. And Josh Allen was one of those guys. And he went to a system where, again, like Kevin said, they let him be himself. You just go out there and play your brand of football. You still see them putting in college elements, run pass options, for Josh Allen, to keep him comfortable, to get him in a groove, to put him in a rhythm, to build confidence throughout the game as he picks up first down with his legs, etc., different things like that. And I truly believe that with this offense, with the pre-snap movement, with the play action that's going to be happening, with the ability to throw the ball outside the numbers with guys like Corey Davis and Mims, and then you have a guy like Jamison Crowder, who even with Sam Darnold, you saw is just a favorite because he's just such a professional route runner, and he really is good in the slot. I think that this kid, he really is going to do great things, and I'm super, super excited for this team. I'm super excited for this organization as just a whole because I really do. It's the first time in a long time where across the board, again, I'm beating a dead horse here, but I just love the staff that they brought in. It felt so natural, the type of guys that they were bringing in. They felt like they were bringing in. This feels like, I'm not saying it's that type of level, but this feels like when Bill Parcells and when Rex Ryan came in, you felt like something was going to be different, and like guys like Mangini and stuff. And, even when Pennington was there that whole time, I felt great about a lot of those seasons, but I'm talking about the initial change because I loved Herm Edwards, but when the initial change happened, I really think that those were exceptional moments in Jets history. Like the signing of Rex Ryan changed the history of the New York Jets. And since then, the Jets haven't even been even remotely as good as they could be since Rex Ryan was here. And to have a guy that's passionate like Saleh, to get a quarterback that's passionate, you don't think that all gas mentality is going to bleed into Zach Wilson, who's already fired up? Of course it is. You're going to get a fired up dude who's in a system that fits his skill set with better talent than what Sam Darnold came into with. I really do honestly believe this team is on the way to success, on the right path. And we just got to hope, because I think the Jets are doing everything right now on their side of the ball the right way. We got to hope that
turn the audio on for this part. This could be good. Want to throw the audio on?
I do not. It lagged out, and I had to bring it back up, and I had to put audio on. So
okay,
sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. So, Kevin, before we end this, is there any last words that you'd like to say? That I'm not staying until 23. Y'all are beat on that. But what are your final words on Zach Wilson?
No, I mean, it's super hard to be optimistic, like as a Jets fan, because we've been down this road and we keep going down it with Geno and with Sanchez, with guys. It's a reset. It's a total reset. New culture, just like you highlighted. It's got to be the culture. It's got to be the energy in the room. And I hate the term, and I hated this before because people act like Jets fans are stupid. The Jets don't need a savior. Savior is the wrong word. He's got to be one part of the solution, one part of the cog. It might be the biggest cog in the wheel, but he needs the O-line. He needs a running game. He needs receivers. This isn't the last draft pick in the draft, right? He's not the last player we're adding to get where we need to be as a perennial playoff team, right? He's one of the solutions, one piece, like Quinnen's a piece, like Becton's a piece, like Lawson's a piece, like whoever the running back we get is a piece. These wide receivers are a piece, and he's got to be set up for success as part of the sum of his parts right now. He is a rookie. He's going to be a young player, and he's going to make young player mistakes. But you got to be patient and hope that Crowder extends, gets some extra first downs. Defense holds teams, keeps the score down until he can get into a rhythm and figure some things out. And we got to get a running game. And we got to have an offense with an identity. The biggest thing I complained about under Bowles, and Rex Ryan had an identity, right? He came in, ground and pound. That's the team's identity. We're going to play D, elite D, and we're going to run the ball, period. Thomas Jones was one of the leading rushers every year he was with Rex Ryan. There was no doubt. And he ran it behind Woody and Brick and Mangold all day. and Moore and everyone else. He ran the ball. Under Bowles, we never had an identity. Were we good at stopping the run, or were we good at stopping the pass on D? Let's chalk the box for neither, because that's what we got. On offense, were we good at passing the ball, or were we good at running the ball? Neither, right? We weren't good at either. We need an identity for this team. And LaFleur is going to come in. He's going to put the Shanahan offense in, which is going to be run the ball and execute off it and ask the guys to do what they do well. And he's going to have big, strong receivers that can block. We got 2 of them, and that help other players be successful. Everyone's got to execute off each other. It's not a savior moment for Wilson. And the defense has got to be the same thing. The defensive line needs to control the game. And the Jets have had elite defensive lines. We've had it, right? When we had Chris Jenkins, when we had Ferguson, when we had Sean Ellis, when we had Marvin Jones and Mo Lewis and Vilma and name after name, David Harris and Davis, Demario Davis. We had identities on defense, and they controlled the front 7 and made everyone's life easier behind them. So what I'm looking for is these guys right now, how they play off and what identity that we're going to have on. And I expect a strong O-line and D-line under this regime. So look for the Jets to continue to build that and be excited about it. We know what they're trying to build. You know we're trying to build a good offensive line, and that's going to help Wilson be successful. We just said Lawrence walking into a bad situation. Wilson should be walking in a situation where we know what they're trying to build. And you should be excited about that. Be excited.
I agree 100% with everything that you said. And again, I love the fact that the Jets bring in a guy like Corey Davis, who's used to run blocking as like per usual. It's just like, I'm going to come into this game knowing I'm going to have to be a good run blocker. And he fits perfectly. Strong physical receiver, but also deceptive speed, great route running. You know, you look at Mims, big body frame type of guy. Like, this is not going to be a receiver group that you could just push around. Like, this is going to be a receiver group with some strength. And, you know, I believe once they get that offensive line put together, it's not going to be easy to push us around. You got a quarterback that can move around, run with the football, play action, a lot of pre-snap movement. You know, the Jets are going to try to do some good things here, man. I promise. This is the best setup and collection of coaches and I think starting staff that we've seen since Rex came in here and he brought in Leonard and Scott and all those guys, and they drafted Mark Sanchez, like, you know, and had Cotchery and like all, you know, Thomas Jones, you know, all the guys and stuff. But that, like, this is the best setup we've had because we're actually starting from ground zero up and we're not making any, you know, oh, this or that. And I can't agree more with that. Why would you even in a million years, even if Tebow wants to try out, like, I would be like we got to wait until like maybe like next week. He's 9
years out of the league. He hasn't played since 2012.
Because he wants him there, bro. I'm telling you what is going to happen. The Lord works in mysterious ways, Mr. Kevin, and he is going to get Tim Tebow back into a game of meaning at some point again to show you it wasn't my boy Tim. It was you, NFL, that didn't want to relent and bring back the old school offense. And let's go 4 or 5 running backs deep, 3 tight ends deep. We're going to wear you down. Fourth quarter comes. My boy is going to shine when everybody's gassed out and he's running you over and hitting you with play actions and different things. Dude, come on, man. Tim Tebow is going to be, mark it down right now. Tim Tebow is going to be the starting quarterback of the Jacksonville Jaguars at some point this season if he makes the team. I'm telling you right now, if Tim Tebow makes the Jacksonville Jaguars team as a tight end, he will be the starting quarterback at some point for the Jacksonville Jaguars playing quarterback. Mark it down. But thank you guys for tuning in so much to the Jets Guru special. Quarterback, we didn't even get the draft started yet. We're just taking quarterbacks. We got Lawrence, we got Wilson, we got Trey Lance. Most likely the Falcons are taking a quarterback too. Then the Bengals are probably going to surprise you. And if they're smart, they'll probably take Sewell. But we'll see what happens. Then we got the Miami Dolphins picking. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw who we got here. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Kyle Pitts taken in that. Wait, is Miami? Yeah, they have the 6th pick. Yeah, that's right. So I wouldn't be surprised. Kyle Pitts would be a great addition for them right off a rip, and then it just goes on from there until we get to 23. And so once 23 gets picked, we'll also go ahead and I'll throw an article up or something like that. And we'll talk about that, and then we'll break it all down next Thursday, and also this Sunday, me and Kevin will be on our audio podcast, Jets Guru. You can listen to that, Google Podcast, Apple, wherever you listen to podcasts. So we'll overcap the draft this Sunday. We'll have something ready for you by early, about 12 o'clock to midday, something like that. But you guys are amazing fans. We really appreciate it. Had to bring back the old school tandem, Dan and Kevin, for you guys. The rest of the slackers out there, Krista and Ramon, couldn't attend the episode, but we love them and we appreciate all their hard work on the Jets Guru page. We got some good things coming this year. We got some new t-shirts coming, new players, new t-shirts. I had to throw out all my templates except for that one, the Becton one, Mr. Becton. So, but we're going to have some new t-shirts up because we got new players. And so I wasted a bunch of money, but at least I still have the shirts, So, maybe I'll send them out to a country in need. I'll tell them that Sam Darnold won the Super Bowl for the Jets. I'll put Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold on the shirts and I'll send them to a country in need. Who knows, so at least Sam Darnold could keep giving from New York. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate all your support. Amazing people, amazing fans. Please share. We don't curse. We don't talk about politics. We only talk Jets football. Appreciate your support. Amazing. You guys are great. I'm out of here. Bye.
I created a monster.